He was a small dog with tired eyes and ears that had carried discomfort for a long time. Even when tears gathered beneath his eyes, he stayed quiet and waited. Before anyone helped him, his days passed in a narrow outdoor space near a busy road. People came and went, motorbikes moved past, doors opened and closed. He often sat near the same wall, watching movements he could not always hear. His ears were filled with ticks. They had settled deep inside and around the folds of skin. The irritation made him shake his head, but after some time, even that seemed to require too much energy. His hearing had slowly faded. Loud sounds sometimes brought a small reaction, but ordinary voices did not. When someone approached from behind, he rarely turned around. A local rescuer noticed him sitting close to the road. The dog looked up and held the man's gaze. Moisture rested beneath his eyes. Then he lowered his head and moved one paw forward, as though asking the man not to leave. The rescuer crouched beside him. He did not reach too quickly. He placed a little food on the ground and waited. The dog leaned forward and ate slowly. He was taken to a small veterinary clinic where the staff could examine his ears. The first purpose was simple. They needed to remove the ticks, treat the damaged skin, and learn how much hearing remained. The dog stayed very still during the examination. He did not understand the hands around his face, but he allowed them to work. From time to time, he pressed his body against the person holding him. The treatment could not be completed all at once. His ears were tender, and the skin needed gentle care. The staff cleaned a little, paused, and then continued. Afterward, he was taken to a foster home. The foster family already cared for another dog. She was confident and curious. She walked directly toward visitors and noticed every sound in the house. The new dog was different. He watched first. He waited. Because he could not hear footsteps clearly, sudden movement made him uncertain. When the family first met him, he did not walk toward them. He remained beside the rescuer and looked from one face to another. A woman sat on the floor several feet away. She did not call him because she knew he might not hear. She simply held out her hand. After a while, he moved closer. He touched her fingers with his nose, then stepped back. A few minutes later, he came forward again. During his first days in the house, he chose a quiet corner near the sofa. A soft bed had been prepared for him, but he slept beside it instead. At night, he sometimes moved through the room while everyone else was asleep. He checked the water bowl, walked toward the hallway, and returned to his corner. If someone entered the room without facing him, he became startled. The family began tapping gently on the floor before approaching. They also switched a light on and off when they wanted his attention. The first changes were small. He began resting with his head down instead of keeping it raised. He ate while the family remained nearby. He allowed his ears to be cleaned without pressing himself against the wall. The family still worried. Some days, he seemed comfortable. On other days, he shook his head again or refused to leave his corner. They wondered whether his hearing would return and whether the pain had lasted too long. They continued with the medicine. They kept the house quiet. They approached where he could see them. No one forced him to interact. One afternoon, the woman sat beside his bed and placed her hand on the floor. The dog watched it for a moment. Then, he stood and crossed the small space between them. He lowered his head into her open palm. It lasted only a few seconds. Then, he returned to his bed. But the next day, he did it again. As the treatment continued, the tics disappeared. The swelling inside his ears slowly reduced. He began noticing stronger sounds. A closing cupboard made one ear move. A metal bowl touching the floor made him lift his head. He could not hear everything, but parts of the world were reaching him again. He also learned to follow the family's hands. A flat palm meant stay. A small movement toward the floor meant come closer. A gentle wave meant it was time to go outside. His confidence grew through these simple routines. He began following the other dog into the garden. At first, he stayed close to the doorway. Later, he walked across the grass and sniffed along the fence. He learned where the morning light reached the floor. He learned when meals arrived. He learned that the family always returned after leaving the room. Now, his days are quiet and steady. He wakes when the other dog moves beside him. He waits near the kitchen while breakfast is prepared. Sometimes he hears the bowl. Sometimes he notices the family's movement first. He spends part of each afternoon near the window. When someone sits on the sofa, he often places himself close enough for one paw to touch their foot. His hearing is not perfect. It may never be. But he no longer watches every doorway with worry. He no longer shakes his head through the night. His eyes are clear, and his ears are comfortable. The family cannot point to one day when everything changed. It happened during treatments, quiet meals, and repeated gentle approaches. It happened each time someone made sure he could see them before touching him. Trust often grows this way. Slowly, through small actions that remain the same. If his story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe. A small share may help another quiet animal be noticed. At Healing Paws, we believe small stories matter. Sometimes a warm bed, a steady hand, and enough time are where a new life begins.